All right, thanks for tuning in to the Football Talk Squadron. I'm Dutch.
And I'm Pops.
And this is our final NFL episode for the offseason. We're going to go over the AFC West, take a look at the four teams. Starting with AFC or finishing with AFC West last because Super Bowl champs. Kansas City Chiefs, there's been a lot of turnover in the division in terms of head coaches. You got Jim Harbaugh coming in. The Raiders bring in Antonio Pierce. Really, they're not bringing him in. They're just keeping him from last season after firing probably the worst coach in NFL history in Josh McDaniels. And then you have the failed experiment in Denver being over with Russell Wilson. And by failed experiment, I just want to point out that today is Thursday, the 25th. NFL drafts happening today. As of right now, the Broncos quarterback room, Jared Stidham, Zach Wilson, Ben DiNucci. I don't know what's worse, having Russell Wilson in the room or having those three guys. And I'm going to go with those three guys. But that's rough.
And also, the Chargers turnover as well. I mean, we've got, Jim Harbaugh coming in, trying to change around what Brandon Staley just burnt down to the ground. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Well, I mean, Harbaugh got rid of a lot of guys, which we'll get into, because I almost feel like Herbert and Josh Allen are going to be throwing to themselves this season because there's still one there. All right. Past and present. Instead of doing players, I thought since today is the first round of the NFL draft, I think this is pretty interesting.
All right.
These are all the number 2 overall picks in the NFL draft. So many times we focus on the number 1 guy, but we'll go through the number 2 guy. So I'll give you the team and I'll give you the college, and then you can guess the player. The first one's going to be a toss-up for you. We'll go 2017 Chicago Bears.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Here I was thinking we were about to pick up Deshaun Watson. I've already put it on there. I knew who Pat Mahomes was, but I didn't think anything more of like Johnny Manziel. And I hate to say it now, but, I thought we were trading up, because 49ers got Bosa, but we took Mitch Trubisky out of UNC.
Took Trubisky. You are correct. The following year, 2018, the New York Giants take a number 2 overall pick.
Yeah, baby. And we're like, it's Mitch Trubisky all over again. Who is this guy? Oh, Danny Dimes, baby.
Nope, was not Danny Dimes.
What? Oh.
This is 2018.
Saquon.
It's Saquon. Yep.
Yeah.
Saquon. Danny Dimes, I don't think came off until
he was top 10, wasn't he?
I think he was top 10,
yeah.
But he wasn't number 2. All right, 2019, San Francisco, the 49ers.
Trey Lance.
Nope.
No, that Bosa?
This is Nick Bosa year out of Ohio State. 2020, Washington Redskins at the time. Number 2 overall pick.
Yeah.
We've talked about him on. Yep, yeah, Chase Young out of Ohio State. Again, back-to-back years for Ohio State and defensive ends. 2021, the New York Jets, number 2 overall. Zach Wilson.
Yes. When was Darnold? Darnold 3?
Darnold was the year before. I think Darnold came out in 2019 or 2018, and I believe he was
3.
He was for sure top 5.
Yeah.
This 2021 was the year of Mel Kiper, and which there's a lot of shades of this with JJ McCarthy, that he has the roll to the left, throw across the body, hits the dude 60 yards down the field, and everyone's like, oh, this is our guy. And it turns out that, hey, just because you look good in your pro day doesn't mean that you look good live. 2022, the Lions.
Oh.
The next 2 picks in 2022 and 2023, I will say, are the best of all the guys we've talked about. These guys look like they should have been the number 1 overall.
Oh, geez.
Needed school?
Yeah, who? It wasn't Sewell, was it?
Michigan. Came out of Michigan.
Why am I dropping this? Yeah, you got me on the Detroit pick.
Aiden Hutchinson.
Oh, dummy. Yeah, such a dummy.
It's tough with the defensive guys, but he for sure, which I get that Walker playing with the Jags. I'm not trying to give him a pass. I understand the Jags aren't as good, but at the same time the Lions weren't good, and Hutchinson is the clear. This is the guy that should have gone number 1 overall. You know, I'm sure Detroit thanks Jacksonville every day for going with Walker.
No joke.
But Hutchinson has been lights out.
Well, and that's the thing.
And then
like,
last year,
you feel like Hutch has been in the league so much longer just by how phenomenal he's been the last 2 seasons.
For sure. I mean, he has shown everything that you want out of a draft pick from the get-go. Then last year, the Houston Texans, number 2 overall.
Oh, CJ
Stroud, who for sure outshined Bryce Young. We can go into the semantics of how bad the Panthers organization is, but that's not to take anything away from CJ Stroud. I mean, Stroud lit it up. You look at them this offseason, we've talked about, you said it in text message because I think that you weren't on the episode for the AFC South, where it was just like, once Diggs got traded, you were like, yo, he is either going to go off because it's his final year of his contract, or he will be a cancer for that organization by like week 3.
Yep.
So one of the memes I saw that I was laughing was Stephon Diggs after not getting 5 catches week 1, and it's Antonio Brown when he's like running off the field against the Jets when he played for the Bucks.
I think the funniest one too. Another funny one is, when he was in the Bills uniform watching the Chiefs celebrate, now he's in the Texans uniform watching the Chiefs celebrate.
Oh my goodness. Antonio Brown's got CTE, bad. But anyway, so AFC West, that was a good little breakdown, and especially before the draft. You take a look at the highest picks for the AFC West. You got the Chargers sitting at number 5, followed by 2 teams that I think a lot of people think are going to go quarterback, if not try to trade up, with the Raiders and the Broncos. And then at the very end of the draft, which I think is one of the best positions to be when you are a defending Super Bowl champion, is the Kansas City Chiefs. And the reason I say it's in one of the best positions to be is because, guys, I sent out this graph last night. Adam Scheffler posted it, and I was like, man, that's pretty impressive. So from 2000 to 2019, the data encompasses 20 drafts, and it's the position hit rates or miss rates. And it's based upon whether that player signed a second contract with the team that drafted him. You take a look at wide receivers, only 27%, tight ends 33%, safeties 34%, running backs 38%, and cornerbacks 38%. It's the top positions are all line. Centers were the highest. You had 12 guys taken, 92%. So only one guy didn't re-sign. Offensive tackles were 59%, and guards were 50%. Everything outside of offensive line is less than 50%, which is pretty incredible. And especially Maul pointed it out. The edge guys, there were 104 guys taken in the first round that are edge. Only 46 of them re-signed, which is pretty incredible. We can take a look at it. And I think that this year you look at it from the position of quarterback and wide receiver, both less than 50%. You know that you've got, I would argue, probably 5 or 6 potential first-round wide receivers, the same as quarterbacks. Not in our opinion of being a first-round guy, but I think in a lot of GM rooms, they're viewed as, hey, maybe this is our guy. And a lot of them are swings and misses. So I asked, you guys on the text, and I'll ask you, out of the AFC West, what's your predictions for the draft in terms of what you think is going to happen tonight?
I mean, I feel like that's a loaded question. I think we're still going to continue to see this statistic. Like I think it's overwhelming that the edge position overall if you look at that stat chart, and anybody could look that up, but the edge has 104, and it's almost double almost every single position except for wide receiver and cornerback. And that just blows me away that they think this guy coming off the edge to get to the quarterback is going to solve all their problems for a franchise. And I mean, they're swinging and missing, just shy of 50% on, hey, he might be it, he might not be it. And I mean, we're looking at it. We've been talking all year, kind of Chase Young, Nick Bosa, the guys that are being overpaid, Jadeveon Clowney, even though he's been a journeyman and has been able to stay in the league. You just look at these positions and you're like, man, you would think that they would take this into consideration. And moving into tonight, like if I'm playing, if I'm in the room with Jim Harbaugh and you look at this chart, everybody's like, oh, hey, they're going to go get this receiver. I'll tell you what, I'm at number 5. I'm drafting Joe Alt. Like you look at these numbers and the line has the best success rate. And, that's going to be the guy that's going to protect Justin Herbert. I think I would be more apt to getting those linemen purely off of this chart if I had to play the analytics game. But I know a lot of people go for, we think this guy's going to be good. I mean, look at Zach Wilson's pro day that got him drafted when he, scrambled, rolled out through the crossbody for, 70 yards. Like those types of big play potential is what gets guys drafted, not who the player is day in and day out.
One of the things I saw that was interesting online was when Harbaugh came out and was like, JJ is the best quarterback in this year's draft and of all time at Michigan. Someone was like, you know what should have happened? Ryan Poles should have called Harbaugh, be like, we'll give you our number 1 pick for Herbert.
Yeah.
If that's how much you believe in him, then get him. And that's not going to happen in this draft. But it's more of that's the type of logic that what you talked about with the wide receivers and the offensive linemen. I'm in a big, I think that this year really sealed it with when you have your guy, which the Chargers do, and the Chiefs have proved it. The Chiefs had no names. Did they struggle in the preseason and
yes.
during the regular season? 100%. But when it came time for playoffs, there was no bigger threat to any team than Kansas City Chiefs. And then they had a wide receiver. Like Tyreek Hill's gone. They had Travis Kelce.
Yep.
Now, granted, the greatest, or it's between him and Gronk of who's the greatest all time. And anytime you're in that category, it helps huge. But from that standpoint, I look at the Chargers and I go, I remember Herbert last year had that whole thing on his finger because his hands hurt because he's getting hit. And it's like, I don't care who you have the ball, who's out there at wide receiver. If he doesn't have time, it doesn't matter. Get him time, help him out on the line. You can build a roster other places. There are plenty of guys who have come out not in the first round who have been Hall of Fame level wide receivers. Focus on that for the Chargers. Also with the Chargers, they get rid of Eckler. They've got Gus Edwards. I really think that the Chargers try to get Blake Corum in the later rounds. I would not be surprised to see Harbaugh pulls some Michigan guys out.
And I've got to pull it up here. They've got the 37th. Outside of number 5, they got the 37th pick. So I think Corum's still going to be on the board. They just signed J.K. Dobbins as well. I think they bring in – I agree with what you're saying. I think they bring in Blake Corum just because, he gets to go play with Coach. And, I see that happening.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I get that Harbaugh really eviscerated the roster. Mike Williams is gone. Everett's gone. Allen's gone. Eckler's gone. You sort of look at it and you're like, ooh, like, what are they going to do? They have Herbert. Like, Herbert, people questioned this with Kansas City last year. They won a Super Bowl. No one's questioning it anymore. Harbaugh knows how to build a team. He took the Niners to the Super Bowl.
With Kaepernick.
Now, Kaepernick was having an amazing year. Like,
for sure.
There's no argument about whether or not he wasn't playing really well. From that standpoint of, what Harbaugh's done, Harbaugh will get it figured out. And I think way faster than the Broncos will and the Raiders. And it's not, I don't want to say, I think the Raiders have a better chance than the Broncos just because the Broncos, to me, are a real mess in terms of an organization and everything else with Sean Payton. I think that Sean Payton, even when you take a look at last year, just sort of what happened, it's for as good as we thought that he was going to be doing with Russell Wilson, it didn't happen. Like, so I think Harbaugh does well with the Chargers. I think he is able to, and he'll build a roster around Herbert, but I think that does start with the offensive line that you talked about.
Yeah, and I'm looking now. Like you look at some of these names that were on that Super Bowl team with Kaepernick. They had a 30-year-old Frank Gore, a 33-year-old Anquan Bolden. They had Crabtree, but he was not doing anything. And then they had Vernon Davis, of course. Like
You know who else they had at wide receiver?
Randy Moss.
Randy Mouse.
Yeah,
Yeah. He was at the final stages of his career at that point. But Anquan Bolden was, in my opinion, he's a Hall of Famer. I got his jersey hanging up because that dude, he was just, he never gave up any play. I loved watching him play.
Mm-hmm.
We outside of the Chargers, and I know we've talked about it in their defense, the Chargers offense. Outside of that, when you look at their defense, they still have Khalil Mack. They have Bosa, who, in my opinion, has been probably one of, if not the most overrated outside of his brother on the defense. And you could throw Chase Young in there too. I mean, you just have guys that I think that they came out and they had a really good rookie year and they showed a lot of promise. And it's why we bring up this like edge thing of why so many guys. It's because it is a position of need. Like, I think you look back and it's like, what guys like Lawrence Taylor can do, what Reggie White can do, what Von Miller can do. When guys are playing really well, like they change games. Like,
and I go back, talking to one of the guys on the Chargers rosters. When we worked together in Columbus, like I would fight you that Khalil Mack was better that season than Aaron Donald when Aaron Donald got the defensive player of the year. But like the problem is that the dude can't stay healthy, and they're just giving him millions upon millions. And unfortunately, it's not a Von Miller situation in Buffalo, but it's very similar because you're paying this guy so much money because you know his potential and what he will bring, but he just can't bring it, 75% of the game like he used to.
yeah. I mean, I get why the Bills went and got Von Miller. It's one of these things where he wins a Super Bowl. Yes, he got hurt, but the Bills are like, man, we got to have a guy that can stop Mahomes. And they get it. They pay all this money. And what do they get? Not the results they're looking for. I think the same of San Francisco going and trading for Chase Young. Chase Young's going to go to the Saints. He's going to be, it's this, in the perfect example is Javadian Clowney. Like, here's this guy that's supposed to be this revolutionary guy. You pair him next to JJ Watt. You're like, this is supposed to be like
it.
Yeah. Like this is going to be the 85 Bears defensive line. Like, no one's stopping this. This is going to be, they're going to write stories about how well this team plays, and it doesn't happen. And that for me is the Chargers defense. Like, you look, you just say that it's like you got Bosa and Khalil Mack, and you're just like, well, good luck quarterbacks in the AFC West. And it's like Mack's had good games, but Bosa hasn't. Then, just like you said, Mack has a really good game, get choked up thinking about it 6 sacks in a game, but then he falls off. Like, it's not the level that you would hope for them. Do I think that they go defense in the first round? Absolutely not. There's no chance. There's no one defensively that I think they could take. The only thing that I could see at number 5, the other big rumor is that someone will try to trade up with the Chargers for the number 5, i.e., the big name is the Vikings, because the Vikings hold 2 picks. And if that happens, then I can certainly see the Chargers trying to go get a corner later in the draft, another offensive lineman, because I think the Vikings are sitting at number 11 right now. I can definitely see a guy falling to them, perhaps, but that's really where I see the Chargers at right now. When you take a look at the other teams, We got Broncos and Raiders. Who you want to talk about next?
And we go into the Raiders, how we see, the first year with Antonio Pierce able to shift the culture away from Josh McDaniels to how he wants to set them up for moving into the 2024 season and just instill the Raider way. Like I was watching they got a hype video out right now of how AP's doing business from the first day of voluntary workouts. And I mean, he's a guy, he played with the Giants, been to the Super Bowl, he knows how to win. And just listening to him talk, you're like, I'll go fight for this dude.
He's very much a Dan Campbell.
Yes.
Like he's a player's coach. Now, hopefully, he's a little bit smarter than Campbell when it comes to kicking field goals and taking some points when needed. And I know it's funny now, but at the same time, I also realize that the Lions won games like against the Chiefs because Dan Campbell was willing to take some
risk.
unconventional risk.
Yep.
It worked out for him up until the NFC Championship, and that's where it cost them. For the Raiders, the biggest thing, I mean, it is position of quarterback. Like, Jimmy G's not the answer. He's gone. They bring in Gardner Minshew, who had a good year last year. Like, do I think that he's better than Jimmy G? Yes. That's why Jimmy G's gone. A lot of people, I know that Jaden Daniels in some camps has said that he would like to play for them. In other camps, you hear maybe Penix go into there, Bo Nix, maybe JJ if he fell. I don't see that happening anymore. I don't see him getting down to the Raiders just with as much hype that's been around him. The Raiders to me are interesting just because it's like, do they go reach for a guy? You look at the statistics of guys that are signed to a second-year contract. It's like, I think the Raiders would be far better off picking a different position that brings them a lot better success farther down the road than reaching for a quarterback. But I wouldn't be surprised. Like, this is the draft. We were talking about predictions on text earlier. Like, I can honestly see 6 quarterbacks going in the first round. You for sure got Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. A lot of people think JJ, and I think that if all 4 of those come off the board very quick, someone's going to go get Bo Nix, and someone's going to go get Penix. It's going to happen.
And I think this is where I see, Michael Penix having the chance to go in the first round is by getting picked up by the Raiders because, they got somebody like Gardner who knows how to play football. He's just a guy who loves the game. Doesn't really have any outside distractions. If you ever watch anything on him, like he just lives in a van, down by the river and only eats, breathes, and sleeps football. So that's a guy that you want to have teaching, a guy like Penix the ropes of the NFL as a mentor role, while also Gardner's going to keep you in games. He's not going to necessarily blow them for you. I mean, just look, he almost took the Colts to the playoffs after, Anthony Richardson got hurt, in game 5. Now, they've obviously got other issues to worry about, such as, their secondary. I don't think you pick up a secondary player here, maybe offensive line. If, Joe Alt's going to be off the board by now, but maybe the dude from Penn State.
Finashu.
Yeah, Finashu. One of those guys still hanging out there. Try to get some protection before you go and draft your guy, because this could be a scenario kind of like Fields didn't have an offensive line. We still picked him. He was number 10. Says pick number 13. And it's like, okay, you got your quarterback, but he doesn't have anybody to block for him. So this is a good opportunity for the Raiders to go try to find an offensive lineman to start their rebuild.
Yeah, and one of the guys that keeps coming to mind, because I think that he's overlooked this draft. I think when healthy, this dude is really, really good, is Amarius Mims.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a solid player for the Raiders to go get. He has that Georgia pedigree of just sort of being a mean, tough offensive lineman, which the Raiders need inside of that organization. At wide receiver, they're good. The other position for the Raiders that I think it's a position that's so rarely taken in the first round. I don't see it happening in this draft. There's no one that's really reaching that level of pedigree. They still have to find a replacement for Josh Jacobs. And he was a big piece of that offense for as bad as the quarterback play was last year. Like, Jacobs won them games for the past 2 years. That's a position that you have to figure out. I know that they still have Adams on the outside, which is huge. He's always going to be a presence. I know that there's been a lot of rumors, and the Raiders have said they're not going to trade Adams. Rodgers would love to get him up in New York. It'll be interesting to see what happens on draft day, because I think from that position, I think that this draft is setting up to have some wild trades. Like it has a lot of potential, because I think that there's a lot of teams that think there's a guy that fits their scheme, and a lot of the other very, very top teams don't really have like a need at quarterback. Like the Chargers don't have a need at quarterback. I'd argue the Giants really don't either, with how much that Danny Dimes is due. So it opens it up that I think that some other teams could possibly wield their way up to the top of the draft, and the Jets are sitting there. I believe it's at number 6. Like, it would not surprise me after they've gone and signed Tyron Smith and some other guys at offensive line for someone like the Raiders or the Broncos to jump up to the Jets and go grab a quarterback.
Yeah, and I just
sorry, they're at number 9.
Yeah, I just looked. They made some. No, because 9's Atlanta.
Yeah,
or the Bears. Sorry,
it's Jets are at 10. Excuse me.
Yeah. The thing here that I'm seeing, they also have a need for running back, like you were kind of alluding to. They picked up Madison, which you thought he was going to be the guy behind Dalvin Cook. Like, he had moments of greatness in Minnesota behind Dalvin Cook, and then when it came for his time to shine, when Dalvin left, like, the guy was nowhere to be found. So they picked him up, and they also picked up Amir Abdullah, which I haven't he's not been a name that we've been calling since he's been in the league. And so there's a gap there with their late second round pick. They've got, the number 44. So midway second round, they could address those as well, like you were already alluding to. I don't think, shucks, I'm drawing blanks, but they need running backs as well, because they just fixed a little bit of their D-line. They signed Christian Wilkins, so now they got Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, and it kind of goes back to that whole Chargers. Hey, these guys are getting a little bit older. Max Crosby, even though he's a psycho, is getting older. Christian Wilkins, he's been in the league for he's on a second contract. These guys are going to be getting older and have the possibility to, similar scenario as the Chargers, to fail. So they could address those. Their defense.
Antonio Pierce is a defensive guy, because
exactly.
I really think that they're going to go corner. That's like where my gut is right now. Like, I don't think that if they go and they take Penix, to me that hurts the team at least in the shorter term, just because he's not feeling a position need. Like, Penix can't go play corner, and I think that with Gardner Minshew there, it's like you've already you've got a quarterback. Like, that this guy can play. He showed it last year. Like, get the other positions right, and then you can make some moves. Like, help the team out first, and I feel like Antonio Pierce is going to do that with the Raiders, but we'll see.
For sure. I think it'd be interesting to see, like I said, like, he gets his first whole year to instill his way. You obviously know that Mark Davis is going to let you do anything. I mean, the man's 60 years old, rocking a bowl cut, so he's ready to party.
Yeah,
and he brought on Josh McDaniels, so he's desperate to do anything for that franchise for his daddy.
The Raiders are. It's sad because when me and my wife went to Vegas, we took a tour of the Raiders Stadium. I mean, it's immaculate,
dude. Beautiful.
It's amazing. Like, we took the tour. There's not a bad seat in the place. I can only imagine watching the Super Bowl in there, because it was.
Dude, they let me sneak in. So when we went to the Pro Bowl last year when I was out there, we got to sneak into the VIP area. Dude, they had couches. Like, you got your own little room, but it was right in front of.
I was down in there.
Yeah, right in front of all those seats, and you just got these lounge chairs and just posted up. Dude, whoever designed that stadium, well done.
But the problem is me and you are never going to make that type of money to go sit down with those couches. That's why that couch at home hits the best.
Checks.
Oh, my goodness. But the Raiders, at least, Mark Davis is not like his dad that is dead. I feel like it's like a Tepper or a Jerry Jones that was way too involved. I think that they got lucky first on the team. And maybe not lucky is the right word. They made better decisions, but Odell Davis really cost them games because of who that they picked.
Yeah.
We'll find out how much rope Antonio Pierce is truly given in this. That being said, the Broncos talk about rope. They've already hung themselves a few times. They're paying Russell Wilson $35 million this year to not be on the roster. They get rid of Jerry Jeudy, which I don't have a real problem with because Jerry Jeudy, I know we had talked about it a little bit. He had always been that guy that you were like, hey, this is supposed to be this guy. He's supposed to hit. And never in Denver did you ever see him come out and ball out. That to me is one of those ones where it's like, was it Denver or was it Jeudy? I think we'll find out more in Cleveland. Not saying Deshaun Watson's playing great. I just think Deshaun Watson's better than anyone that Jeudy had on the roster for the Broncos. The Broncos still have Sutton, but the Broncos to me are sort of this roster where they've been trying to get it redone since Peyton left the building, but it's been constantly getting older and older. And a lot of their team is just dated. They have a lot of holes, and I feel bad for them because it's like, do they have a really good corner and Patrick Surtain? Yes, but it's like outside of him, dude, they don't have a whole lot of people. Like the Broncos are desperately in need of a fix. You take a look at the quarterback room, I would almost say it's a given that Sean Payton's going to draft a quarterback. Like, we talk about Stidham, Zach Wilson, and Ben DiNucci. It's just like, we already know none of those guys are the answer.
Checks.
None of them.
Well, and I'm looking here right now, just seeing kind of who they've picked up. I mean, they picked up Josh Reynolds, from the Lions. I felt like at best he was a wide receiver too. As they got they brought back little Jordan Humphrey, which I don't think he really did a whole lot. The problem that I see with the Denver Broncos is they have the potential to swing and miss because they don't have a second round pick. So they're the ones who are like, man, we've got to get this guy that we absolutely need for our franchise with this first pick. So you could see they're going to hose themselves by this decision, possibly tonight, just because they won't draft again until, Saturday.
Yeah. And that is a position that they've put themselves into. And as you pointed out, it's one of these ones where I think the pressure will get to them and they'll make it far worse than they'll make it better. Just because no one likes it when I say no one likes it, everyone loves it when you're the Chiefs and years later you're like, hey, here's all these Super Bowl titles. Then you're like, oh yeah, this guy was a great pick. But no one likes an offensive lineman day one. Like that doesn't sell jerseys. That doesn't generate interest in the team. But from the same standpoint, you know what also doesn't generate interest in the team?
Picking up Zach Wilson.
Yeah, losing. Being losers. Like Zach Wilson is not going to win games. Like found that out last year at the Jets. He had probably the best defense in the league last year, still couldn't win. Like now, granted, he balled out against when Donna Kelsey was in the crowd. It all depends on whose moms are up in Denver for the crowd. Like if Denver can just stack the stadium with hot moms, then maybe Denver has a chance, but don't see that happening out in Colorado.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. You mentioned how the franchise is looking. You just had Russell Wilson came out of his prime, and you guys dumped so much money into this dude, and it was 2 years of a failed experiment. And then you're going right back into a guy who we've seen not be able to I'm not going to say he's not been able to compete, but he has looked like you or me out there playing on the field at certain times of the game. And you're just like, how did this guy even get drafted? And this is where I draw that link. And I've been telling you guys, like, there's that meme going around of JJ McCarthy making that same play where he throws that crossbody 70-yard bomb, right on the money. And like, this is what ruined the Jets franchise was this throw right here. And maybe the Vikings are about to do it, moving up and picking JJ and find themselves in a similar situation with the Jets and Zach Wilson. Like Dan Orlovsky said that the Jets failed him. I find that hard to believe just based on the fact like you have the best defense in the league before you guys started sucking. Let me caveat that. But you had the best defense in the league with Saleh, and then you also had Brees Hall, like the year that he tore his ACL, like he was balling out, and you still finished the year under 500. And then obviously last year was kind of a disappointment. But dude, he's had so many chances, and he just hasn't stepped up to the plate. I mean, there was that whole drama last year about him not wanting to go into the game, but yet here we are, and he gets picked up by Denver. And you've already alluded to it. These three dudes are backups at best, and that's their quarterback room in Denver. So they've got to answer that question.
Orlovsky, does he say some right things? Yeah, but the biggest issue with him is I almost feel like he relives his own career with the Lions and other places, and it's one of these ones where I feel like no matter how good you are in college, the pros is just a different level. It and it goes with all positions. Like there are guys that are phenomenal in high school. Look at Alabama, all these 5 stars, 5 and 4 star kids. This is going to be the next guy, and then they get there, and dude, they don't even see the field. And people will look at, they'll be like, oh, well, that Alabama didn't develop them. And it's like, no, I'm pretty sure that Saban, if they had talent, they would have found it. Like this is where it comes to just playing at a different level. And you look at Zach Wilson, and it's like there's a reason. I want to say this and caveat it. Like he's out of BYU. Yes, it's a Division I school, but it's not like this Power 5 school. Have there been guys that have made it? Yes, but this is also a big reason that like Division II and Division III guys usually are not drafted high. Why? Because it's like it's a different level of competition. Like the NFL knows that. They're not going against future first round picks at corner every week. They're going against a vast majority who will never even go attempt to make the roster on an NFL roster, much less being assured of being a draft pick. Like I just sit back and it's like, yo, if you're a starter on defense for Georgia, there's a good chance you're probably one of the best in college football, if not having a good chance to get drafted into the pros. Like it's difficult. And when you start going into these bottoms, like this is my argument with Bo Nix. Like I know Bo Nix is up there. It's like my man left Auburn.
Yeah.
Bo Nix has been playing since like 2018, I feel like in the same with Jaden Daniels. They've been showing this highlight.
When he threw to Brandon Ayuk.
Yes. He beat Justin Herbert and the Ducks by throwing a touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk. And it's like, yo, how long has this dude been in school? It feels like Stetson Bennett. It feels like this dude is 30 years old.
Yeah, Herbert's on a second contract in the league.
Dude, like those type of statistics, like I sit back and I go, well, maybe he's not as talented as we think. Like maybe it's just he stayed around long enough in college that he was able to succeed in that system and find the right system for him in college. But in the pros, like I sit back and think of Jaden Daniels, he's probably going to go number 2 to Washington. And you know what? He's going to be the starter day one. And if it doesn't work out, it's going to be like Baker. It's going to be very quick to say, oh, he's either our guy or he's not our guy, because Washington's terrible. Like, I get that they have some guys on offense, but that team's been bad ever since John Riggins left, back when they were winning Super Bowls with Joe Gibbs. Like, ever since the Dan Snyder takeover, they've been awful. Yes, they got Snyder out of the building. We'll see how they do, but, dude, it's going to be tough for them going forward, and it's honestly how I see the Broncos. Like, the Broncos are in the same position. It's like, can they go pick a guy that I think looks a little bit better in college and has shown progression? Yes, but it's like you're going to spend a first round pick, and like you talked about, you don't pick again until Saturday. Good luck. That roster is in shambles as it is. All you're going to do is get this poor kid murdered
for sure
for a whole year or two before you move on to somebody else.
And a piece that it kind of just popped up, just a little nugget in my head. Like, there's probably some old heads, like your Jerry Jones type. You brought it up like, hey, he went to BYU. There's been some studs come out of BYU. And I was sitting there, I was like, all right, we had Jim McMahon, won a Super Bowl with the Bears. We had Steve Young, won Super Bowls with the 49ers. It's like, there's probably somebody's like, oh man, he came out of BYU. Like, he's going to be one of those greats, a diamond in the rough. And it's just like, that doesn't happen nowadays like it did back then.
And I'd argue it happens the same with prominent schools. Like, think about Alabama. Like, when you start going into running backs, like, was Ingram good? Yes.
Yeah.
Trent Richardson? Absolutely not in the pros.
Yeah.
Eddie Lacy? Absolutely not. TJ Yeldon? No. Derrick Henry? Yeah. Najee Harris? I'd say it's 50-50, like, on him right now. Like, wide receivers have done like average. You have Julio Jones, who I think is a Hall of Famer. Amari Cooper, I think, has played tremendously well through his entire career, regardless of the organization. But then you have Henry Ruggs going way too fast. You got Jerry Jeudy, who argues with Steve Smith. Like, Mechie has been so-so. Devontae Smith looks good. Calvin Ridley, when he's not betting on himself, usually plays pretty well. Like, it's one of those ones that, like, I think an even better one is, like, if you were to sit back and go, hey, who's the greatest players in the NFL to come out of Ohio State? You're like, okay, Chris Carter, Eddie George, Orlando Pace. And outside of those guys, like, I have a hard time putting someone on the greatest of all time list. Like, here's a school that is, like, legendary. Like, it's one of the most prominent schools of all time. And in the last 20 years, it's like, dude, in terms of true NFL talent, like, they haven't produced anyone up until CJ Stroud this past year. It's just tough. It's tough finding guys. But we'll find out what teams do in the draft.
Fact.
Which brings us to Kansas City. And this is why I say that I think Kansas City's in the best position. There's going to be someone sitting there that shouldn't be sitting there. Like,
exactly.
One of the mock drafts I just saw showed Adonis Mitchell sitting there at Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Kansas City needs another wide receiver.
Yeah,
and if they can find a guy that's a first round talent to go to Kansas City, it's like, dude, good luck. They have the quarterback that can make the throw. They have the offensive coordinator and head coach in Andy Reid that they're going to find ways to get a guy involved. If they can find a guy that has the right mindset, who's talented, that's all the Chiefs need.
And like, I think about it too. Like, they only had, Tyreek Hill and then supporting cast outside of Kelsey. Let's leave Kelsey out of this discussion. But just the wide receiver rooms, like, you think they only had Tyreek Hill, which was your deep threat all the time. Now they've got Hollywood. And if they go get a guy like this or Worthy, running, 4.2s out there, like, good luck, dog. Like, you're going to have to, either they're going to blow the top off or they're dumping it underneath the Kelsey. And then, like, on top of that, hey, you've also got Pacheco, who runs like a maniac out of the backfield. And they just brought back Hilaire. Now, I know he's had some struggles. He hasn't been getting the yards that he needs, but he's still a pound for pound dude, in short down and distance situations. Like, and they brought back Chris Jones, Drew Tranquil. Like, they're bringing their pieces back. They did lose Snead, but, like, I feel like DB's not the caliber of Snead, but you can bring in a guy who's going to be okay for the amount of potential they have or amount of talent they have on that offense. Not potential, it's talent. It's there, especially when you've got 1-5, playing quarterback.
Well, the other thing with their defense is, and I thought about I don't know why this just popped up, but it makes a lot of sense in my brain. Maybe I'll sound like an idiot when I put it out there. It's very reminiscent of the Eagles defense before they met Kansas City, that under Spag, they bring pressure. Like, it helps your corners. Like, if you're getting pressure, corners look great. Why? Because they don't have to cover as long. Like, it helps when you're not having to run around for 7 to 10 seconds trying to cover a guy that's just an athletic freak. And no one could figure out how to combat the Chiefs defense last year. Like, Spag always brought pressure and he called it perfectly. Like, I got to give them credit. Like, dude, he would call some blitzes that was just like, you tell the offense was just like, the absolute worst time for you to call this defense was right now, and you got us. Like, and it stifled teams consistently throughout the playoffs. And like you said, they brought back Chris Jones, which Chris Jones, for as much as he may not, it's they have a team of guys that the worst thing that can happen in Kansas City is for them to not make the playoffs, because the second they get in, their guys just go to a different level. Like Chris Jones played amazing. He had plays even in the Super Bowl with just batting some balls that it was little things that made such a big difference in the totality of the game at that moment. It may not have, it was just one play at the moment, but when you look at momentum and everything else, dude, it changes games. Like I just sit back and I look at Kansas City, and it's like they're not the Rams. They haven't traded all their picks to go get some, very specific guys. They're heavy. Like they'll find guys. They'll find some corners. They'll find some more wide receivers. They'll tag some other guys here and there that will help them win. And good luck. They have the best quarterback in the league by far.
Yeah, they've got 7 picks. They've got don't skip around until round 6. So they've got 1 pick in every single round, 2 in round 5. They missed 6, and then they've got 7. So, yeah. The one thing that kind of scares me, I hate to say it. I absolutely hate to say it. I hope it doesn't happen. But if Mahomes goes down, you've got Carson Wentz. And he's shown since that, 2017, that Philly year that they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, because Carson Wentz got hurt. But Carson Wentz was playing out of his mind. And then we just have not seen that Carson Wentz since. And, if Mahomes stays healthy, guess what? Wentz wins another Super Bowl sitting on the bench. That's like the perfect spot for a quarterback in the league. Just like Jimmy G winning his 2 behind Tom. Like, but
who was Kansas City's backup? Was it Graham Harrell?
Blaine Gabbert.
Was it Gabbert?
Yeah.
I mean, that dude.
Well, they also had Henne for a while as well.
Yeah, but when those guys came in the game, Reed had them ready.
Yeah.
And Reed called. I forget who it was in the playoffs. I think it was the Browns, where Reed, Mahomes is out of the game.
Mm-hmm,
and on 4th and 4 on their own side of the field, called a pass to Tyreek in the flat, and won them the game, beat the Browns. And it was just like, Reed will have those guys ready. And yes, if Mahomes goes down, I would be the first to tell you, like, it's incredibly difficult to recover from that, just because it's like you're taking the best guy in the NFL right now off the field. Yeah. Like, it's hard to win games. It's hard to prepare. Like, teams aren't prepared to play your backup. They're prepared to play the starter, so they really don't know, like, hey, what's the call's going to be? It changes things up, and Reed, I would argue, is the best NFL coach in the game right now with doing it. It's going to be tough to beat Kansas City this year. Like, that's why I got them going back to the Super Bowl. I doubted them all last year. I ain't doing that again.
Like, yeah, you let Matt Nagy call the offense in the normal season, and then Andy's like, all right, I got this now. Stop.
That is something that I don't feel like anyone else talked about, but there was such a clear change in that offense from regular season to postseason that I honestly do believe that is what happened, that Nagy called it during the regular season and Reed took over for the postseason, and no one could keep up.
Checks.
Like, the offense, they called the perfect plays, and Nagy's never done that. Like,
I mean, hey, as I'm sitting here in my Bears uniform, yeah, like dude, don't get me started.
I know. It's a tough time. At least you're getting maybe a new stadium on the waterfront.
Hey, I'll tell you what. It looked, like I said to you, it looks to me like a lot like the Raiders stadium. You know how it's got the glass that looks, Vegas looks over the strip, but this one will be looking into the city. Like, I think it's going to be awesome. I told Allie she needs to buy me season tickets already, so we'll see what happens.
You ain't ever getting them season tickets, I can tell you. That's the problem. Like, I guess we can sort of wrap it up since we've finished up with the AFC West. This is, where do you want to watch a game from? Like, I think that it's easy to say I'd like to go to the game. Don't get me wrong. I love going to the game only if I'm like sitting somewhere like very specific. Like, I have to either be like on the front row of the game or in a suite. Not that I know the suite life. I've just worked them a time or two where I'm like, ooh, this is how rich people watch games. And it's nice. Why? Yeah. Because there's a TV in there. There's food. There's a bathroom right there that no one else can get access to except people who live in the suites. It's nice. Then, like, on the other hand, it's like you can go to the sports bar and watch a game. And it's great because they have a ton of different TVs. They have, food. You don't have to clean up afterwards. But, man, it's hard to beat home. Like, if you have a setup which I only got one TV right now. Hopefully, that's like the dream.
Yeah.
My dream is to have 8 different TVs on the wall, and when the first round of the games come on, I got all games up. Like,
and that would be I'm with you. The only caveat for me is I can't have too comfortable of an oversized chair because then I'll be fighting sleep the whole time. Like for me, I want similar to the bar that you built in Columbus, but just multiple TVs like you were mentioning. You know, with some of the homies that actually get football, like you and Maul, we would have no problem watching football together. But some guys that talk too much during the games, you're like, dog, shut up. I'm trying to watch this game. You know, like we could sit there in complete silence until something happened, and then we'd all jump at it. But you know, you got the fridge, stocked, and then on the bar behind you, you've got your afternoon game snacks, stuff like that. So that'd be my perfect setup with the multiple TVs.
Having all, I just sit back and I think of like having like some cheese dip, whether it's hot dogs, hamburgers, whatever it is, like it's just like it's typical bar food that you just sit back and it's like I can just sort of snack and have a plate. But I am a big believer in what you like. I think the people that come over to the game, that's what makes like the in stadium so great is that when it's like back and forth and the crowd's reacting, that's amazing. That's amazing. When you have drunks beside you, I always say this, I've told this to a few people. The best way I can sum up of where I go to an NFL game is I don't sit with poor people. And what I mean by that is it's not me being like hotty toddy snooty about where I go sit. It's more about I want to pay good enough for a ticket that the people who I'm surrounded with are there to watch the game and not get drunk out of their minds and fight other people. Like I'm here to watch the game. Yeah. Like I try to not even drink water at the game because I hate getting up to use the restroom and missing the game. Like I want to be dedicated to the game. What you also talked about when we have people come over, like one of my big rules, and I'm sure that it's the same way at your house, you're more than welcome to come over and watch the game. But if my team's on, we're pulling for my team. Like it is only like if you came over or a mall came over and Bama was playing USC or Texas, that I would be okay. I would know the dude to my left or my right is pulling for this other team, and that's okay. We're friends. We'll make it out of this game, from it. Like, but there is something about like when people come over and they're not talking about the game, they're like trying to do something else. I'm like, hey, I don't care. The game's on. Leave me alone. Like, we're not talking about work. Unless you're talking about how dumb that call was on 2nd and 6. I don't want to hear anything. Or you're telling me something about NFL trivia that I haven't heard before. I don't want to hear a thing about anything else.
And that's the thing. Like, God love my stepdad, but he never played football growing up. And he's like, oh, no, that's holding, but that's not false start. Or like, whatever the penalty is. She's like, no. And it's like, dog, you never played a day in your life. Like, I love you, but you're the guy who just goes to the bar to drink with your buddies and it's on the TV in the background. Like, you don't understand the game, and it shows.
So he's a Cowboys fan, right?
He was a Steelers. And then like that whole, the take a knee propaganda, like he fell trapped to that and he doesn't watch NFL anymore.
Makes it easier for me to watch. I love watching. It's great too, because like my usual schedule is Thursday, you get Thursday night football, which here recently has been awful. I don't know how the NFL does it, but however they're doing it, it's amazing. Like it's like Vegas statistics. They have somehow found a way to pick the worst 2 teams the year prior to play on Thursday night football, and those games are almost unwatchable. Like they are some of the worst football games.
They're trying to sabotage Amazon. That's what they're doing,
dude. For real. Like Amazon. Anytime Holly was playing the theme song, and when she put on Amazon's theme song, I go, oh, that's the worst game of the week. Like that's what that sounds associated now. Like, oh, do you want to watch Zach Wilson play Russell Wilson? Jets Broncos? Absolutely not. But that's the game that's coming on Thursday, and you feel bad. It's like I gotta watch. Like I'm here. It's the only thing on, and usually by half, you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to go to bed. I'll wake up and find out who won this terrible game.
It's just like watching UFL games.
Oh, dude,
They're trying. They're
they're
trying.
trying. The lack, I think I said this with either you or Maul, the lack of talent and like just sort of the misplays and other things, the sloppiness of play makes it hard to watch.
Yes.
Like, it's just tough. Like, I get that some of these guys may go, when you see a guy that you're like, ooh, he's good, he like shines even harder in the USFL just because of what's going on. But then college on Saturday, football on Sunday, and I don't know about you. I feel like Monday night used to be always like the best game of the week. I feel like that's gone to Sunday night football here
I agree.
recently.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why the NFL hasn't gone to like a complete flex of all games to make it like, I'm sorry, but whoever Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night games are, those games should all be open to be flipped each and every week to make it the best games.
Yeah.
Like, these should be the games that at the end of the day, no matter what I'm doing, this is the game that I want to watch. And the other thing that makes me mad is, not to go on a tirade, the two games on Monday night, both happening at the same time or like an hour difference in between. Like, Hulu doesn't allow for split screens, so I can't watch them both. Like, I think YouTube TV does, which I'm about to switch.
Yeah, you got to get that NFL Sunday ticket on YouTube TV.
Dude, like, what are we doing? Like, that, oh, that makes me so, not being able to watch both of the Monday night games, like, and it's good. Usually week one, I know it's coming, and they used to stagger them. What was like, first game kicked off at 5, the other one kicked off at 9, and there may be a little overlap at the beginning and the end. But this time, where it's like two games going on at the same time, I'm like, what are we doing? Stop that! Like, just put on one.
Well, and I'm just waiting too for the expansion into Europe. When are they planning on putting a team over there? And it's just going to ruin the market, I think. I mean, it's more money for the NFL, but I would absolutely hate it.
Well, the thing that's ruining the market right now, because the issue is that we're going to spend the money. Like, the games going to Peacock for the playoffs and being dedicated to Amazon, I'm not going to miss the game for $5. I'm just not going to. I know that does it make me mad? Yes. You know what makes me even madder is sitting back having to watch like the NBA on TV. Like, it's not going to happen. If there's football on, then your boy's watching it. But I am a little peeved that I have to pay, $5 for a Paramount subscription to be able to watch a stupid game. Like, just, we have to get away. I get that the NFL is a business and it's trying to make money, but I know that people were upset last year because it's like, that's my big thing with the Sunday ticket. If I pay $400 this year to watch every game, then I don't care if it's on Peacock. It's on NFL Sunday ticket. Like, I just paid for every game. Every game better be on.
Yep.
Like, I don't need to pay extra. That's the whole reason I paid $450 to watch this.
And that was the thing with YouTube TV early season. They make it only $250. At least that was their promo last year. So I paid $250 and got every single game. I think the issue that we ran into was around the playoffs. Yeah, when they started putting it on the other services.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I will say, because I saw it with, this isn't football, this is golf, but this dude had a Apple Vision Pro, and he had like 8 different screens. He had the leaderboard. He even had this like 3D map.
I saw that
of like the course.
Yeah,
and I immediately was like, I got online and I was like, Sunday ticket, Apple Vision, and YouTube. Well, YouTube hasn't allowed Apple to put their software on. So you can't use YouTube on the Apple Vision. The second that changes, I told Holly, I was like, I can either have 8 TVs or I can just wear this thing and be totally oblivious to the outside world and have all the games all the time. Like, I may just do that. Maybe worth it for $3,000 at that point. But hopefully we definitely will have to try to get together for a game at least once a year. That's my goal is always to go to one game a year just because it's fun.
Like, yeah, for sure.
It's good to get to go and watch a game. I really want to try to hit up every NFL stadium. I'm not going to go ever to FedEx Field. That they didn't light that on fire. But if the Bears ever get that new stadium built, we'll definitely go.
Oh, dude, it'd be great.
Outside of that, you got anything else?
No, just looking forward to continue to move into the off season and start our discussion of greatest of all times and all that kind of stuff. Looking forward.
And the NFL draft, we'll do a recap once that's over. Round 1 tonight. I know this episode won't premiere till next week, so you'll get it, and then you'll get our topics of discussion of what's going on after the draft and sort of where teams stand. But outside of that, time for us to wrap it up. Time to pull chalks. We'll see you next time.